And before that, thank you for an amazing session. And thank you to the organizers to organize such a great event where we can come together and learn different areas of how things are changing through AI, right? Um, so today my topic is agentic development through GitHub Copilot. So on day-to-day basis, as part of my job, what I do is I try to improve developer ecosystem for more productivity, right? So the main agenda is to empower our developers through different AI tools which are available to utilize. So one of the core thing is to set up GitHub Copilot in a way which fits in your developer ecosystem in your development environment, right? So that's what I'm going to talk about. I've given previous talks on the similar subject at GitHub Dev Day Abu Dhabi and GitHub Dev Day Dubai. So it would be a similar session here. Let's talk about the agenda. So if you see GitHub Copilot as a product, they have custom instructions, they have prompt files, they also have skills, custom agents, and agent orchestration, right? Now, we won't be going too much into the custom instructions and prompt files, but we would be focusing more on skills, um, custom agents, and agent orchestration, right? So let's begin with our first topic, which is skills, right? So I believe many of the developers are already been using GitHub Copilot for a lot of different development tasks. So one of the great feature which has been recently introduced in the coding agent ecosystem is skills, where you create certain set of skills which can be reused by your coding agent, right? So every time, for example, if you ask your coding agent to run entity framework migration, right? So every time it would go search for certain scripts, it would verify the syntax, it would try to execute the script. Maybe initially it would fail, then it would correct those scripts and try to figure out on its own how certain things has to be done in order to run the migration, right? Now, once you create this as a skill, and every time you ask GitHub Copilot for migration, it would directly go to the skill and execute those scripts which are already being prepared. So it would save a lot of what do we say context. It would save a lot of tokens while asking for certain things because you already know about those syntax and those scripts. So this can be considered as a, for example, if you are a fresher and you don't know how to deploy certain thing on IIS, so you would go online, search for it, do a research, and then try to find out commands and then execute it on IIS. But if you are already an experienced developer who knows how to deploy things, it will be much faster for you to get it done, right? So let's jump into the demo for skills. I have prepared certain demo application here. So we have this expense tracker application. I can just show you how does it look like. This is how it looks like, and it has very basic features as of now. So first of all, as you can see, it's running on my local host. I would try to deploy this on IIS as I mentioned earlier, right? So let's see. And this we are doing without skill. So we don't have any skills added to our GitHub folder. And I'll show how to add those skills here, right? So let's say I'll ask my coding agent, can you deploy this application on my local IIS as expense tracker.api and expense tracker.ui. So now let's see how does it act over this particular request. And it would definitely go for search for certain things in my project, right? It would check my configurations, try to figure out what kind of endpoints I've configured, course requests and all those stuff it will check. Right now it will try to figure out the scripts which will be used to deploy certain things. So it's trying to create the PowerShell script, right? It created few tasks. Let me approve this thing. It's trying to run certain commands. Let me approve. So it created a to-do list to update config files, update, publish, like publishing API project, web project, doing certain settings. And if you can see here, it's also failing in between, right? But it will try to automatically fix itself and try to get the job done for us. But as you can see, it's taking certain amount of time to do this. And now it created certain production configuration. Now it's executing the command, and let's see what happens, right? It's trying to build the application, publish the application to a folder. Okay, now it's finding certain errors to publish, but yeah, it's again, we'll try to fix it and move on. And this will take some time to get it done. And I've created certain publish folder here. As you can see, it could publish the application on my, like within my folder structure. Now it will try to paste this thing on the IIS. Okay, let's see. It's creating a PowerShell script now. So it will create a PowerShell script to deploy this application on IIS. If I open the IIS, you will see that there are no folders, no such application available. So it does not have those applications here, right? Now, let's see. Okay, it created me a PowerShell script to set up the IIS, right? Now it's running this script for me. I'll say yes. Okay. All right. Okay. It will try to fix it again on its own. So as you can see, like because without skills, the coding agent doesn't know what exactly to be done, right? It will always try to figure out on its own through its capabilities. But if we provide certain skills, I'll show you how it differs when it has proper skills available, right? So let's see the IIS, what's happening here. It's still no application being deployed. It created another bat file for me. Okay, you can see the scripts here, right? Certain PowerShell scripts will be executed. I mean, the PowerShell script which is being executed is here. And you can also verify the script, how it is deploying or what kind of folders, permissions it has been giving to those folder structure, right? So just bear with me for a few more minutes to see what happens. And then we will go ahead and create a skill, right? So then you will understand how it differs when we use skills to execute certain things. Now it's trying to run IIS setup as admin. It's trying to publish certain things. Let's see. And you can also review the file which it changed, right? So if you want to keep it, you can keep it, or you can just undo it if you don't want those changes to be done. Even with the scripts, you can review or you can keep it. If you don't want, you can just revert it back to its original state, right? Let me check if it created those folders for me. Let me open it up. Go to inetpub. So it created those folders, if you can see here, right? It also pasted the application. Now it might be trying to create those application over the IIS, right? So just refresh it here again. Let us give it some more time. So, like it will be a little bit slower in order to, achieve certain things when we try to do it out as an exploration for us. But being an experienced developer, we can have certain set of skills which we can keep it ready so that every time you have to do certain things or do repetitive things, you can just write it once and then get it done multiple times without wasting your time, right? So I think let's not wait for this thing to finish. I'll just wait for a couple of more minutes and I'll stop it. And then I'll show you how it works when we use skills, right? I think it's taking too much time to finish it up. But let's do one thing. Let's stop this thing and try to delete these folders again. Now let's use skills here. So we have this another project where we have added skills. Just a moment. Okay. So if you see here, deploy to IIS, I've created it as a skill. And these are different steps provided within the skill. So you need to check what are the prerequisites. The Copilot agent should be should be creating these two folders. It should be creating certain application pool, right? Then it should execute certain scripts. Once it is done, these are PowerShell commands which it has to accommodate. Let's try to, deploy it now. I'll say deploy on IIS. Now it tries to first read the skill which it already has, right? So let's see. Okay, it automatically figured out there was already a IIS file, a PS file available, right? Okay, yeah, I'll ask it to 1 second. Let me just stop it. Use the agent again. New session. Okay, can you deploy this application on iOS? So I'll just open the skill again, and this skill mentions here as a description saying that whenever user asks for deployment, invoke this skill, right? So now it's trying to read the skill as it shows here. It's trying to read the skill, and now it will try to execute those skills in that manner. And within few seconds, you will see that the deployment will happen, right? So if I open the folder structure again, let me check. Oh, I need to allow certain things. Let's allow. Yes. Now, if you see, now this particular script is already ready and working. So I don't have to worry about multiple failures within the GitHub Copilot or, GitHub Copilot to figuring out itself like what's happening. I have already created certain skill and it can now use it confidently. And I'm also confident that, my things would not fail, right? So now if you see here, it created two folders. If I go to IIS, it has these two applications created. I can go here and browse it. I hope it works. So let's see. Okay, here it is. So as you can see, it deployed the application within a couple of minutes, right? Now, the difference between not having a skill and having a skill is huge in terms of saving your time, in terms of how confident you can be on GitHub Copilot, right? So let's see how to create this skill, right? So you can have we have GitHub Copilot has certain commands already available. So you can go here slash. I'll stop this, and we can say create skill. So you can have a skill here, and you can give an explanation of what kind of skill you need. So because here I already have deployed to IIS skill, but what I'll do, I'll go here and create a dummy skill. A skill to okay, create me a skill to for API testing, right? So that way, once I give the create skill command, it will try to create me certain set of skills. And as you can see, I have a set of skills already predefined in my project. So one is API integration testing. If you open, you can give a name, you can give a description. Yeah, there are different hints available, and then you have instructions of what needs to be done when the API integration testing skill is invoked. It should invoke the XUnit project. It should try to run certain applications, then it should make sure that the test data is populated within the database through entity framework, right? Now, coming back to our chat window, we asked to create certain skills. It's asking whether it should be in workspace or personal. I'll go with personal, and I'll also add course verification and submit. So now this would be a custom skill built based on my project, right? And it also grounds the also creates a guardrail for the coding agent to not go haywire here and there. So just to make sure that things are executed as per our instructions, right? So this is how you can create skills. And once the skill is created, we can just quickly take a look at it. Okay, let's wait a few minutes. Okay, and now the skill file is created. The skill file would be created under the under .github project, GitHub folder. You will have a folder named skills, and then you can create as many skills as you want here, right? So if I see this file here, this has been created within API testing, and these are the instructions for this particular skill to be executed, right? And I can review, I can make changes however I want. If we are using a different framework, we can mention those frameworks. We can also mention that if login fails, create a new user for testing and start your functionality. All those relevant information we can mention with the skills, right? So this was all about skills. I'll go back to my presentation. So to conclude, as we saw, like skills saves us a lot of time, and it also makes sure that we whatever we are trying to achieve is it's achieved without any errors or without any failures, right? Now, going beyond skills, we can also configure custom agents within GitHub Copilot, right? So what these agents are. So these agents for agentic development, what it means is that you have a small team of yourself where you can have specific set of um, you have specific AI agents which works which acts as a experts on certain topics, right? So it could be a DB agent who knows everything about databases, your DB structure, your schema. Then you can have a API agent who would be working on DTOs, controller services. It would also make sure to follow certain patterns which are related to the framework, like event-driven architecture or maybe CQRS, how like whatever you are following in your project, correct? So today, what I would show is we would see how to create these custom agents, right? And we will also see how this agent works in practice, correct? So let me go back to Visual Studio, right? And okay, so before going into the custom agents which we have, the GitHub Copilot has its own three agents, right? It has a plan agent, it has ask agent, and the actual coding agent, right? So plan, if you see the plan instructions when you open this file, which is non-editable, so it says that the plan agent should research the code base, clarify with user. This would invoke the questions to the users, right? Then it would create a comprehensive plan. And if you see here, the tools which are available with planning agent is search, read, web, VS Code memory. It and if you see here, there is no edit tool. So the planning agent would not be able to edit your files, right? So this is how you can define your custom agent, where you can give a name, description. You can mention tools, which tools are accessible for certain activities. For example, if we want to enable um, command line execution for our custom agent, right? So you need to give execute tool to that particular agent to work further, right? Now this agent has one agent. This agent has one sub agent, which is explore. This sub agent is used to read the code base. That also we'll see in action in a few minutes. Then there are handoffs, right? So once the planning agent finishes its job, then it can then the user can decide whether to start the implementation or they want to review the plan in the editor mode, and then it can also create certain files, right? So it will also create you prompt files for the plan. So this is the planning agent all in all, right? Now let's see um, one of the custom agents which I have created. So one of the custom agents which I have built is orchestrator agent. This we'll check out later. Let me open up backend development agent, right? So if you see the backend development agent, what tools we have given here? We have given the search tool for the code base review. We have given the edit file so that the backend development agent could actually write code for us and create those files, right? Then execute command is to run certain things on the terminal. So for example, building the application, just checking whether there are any build errors or any compile time errors are there. So it would be executing certain commands. Then there's another related to the same thing, running terminal. So it can run the terminal here within itself, the chat, right? Then there is a read mechanism which is already given in. Then terminal selection, it will be able to read the output from the terminals and the search. So this particular, again, it's a parent tool which is given for going through the code basics, correct? Now here we have given multiple handoffs for this particular agent, which is backend development. You can execute unit testing. You can execute integration tests through it, right? So let's see how this particular agent would behave, right? I'll go to backend development agent and I'll try to see, okay, can you implement the login functionality, right? Now, for now, I don't want this functionality to be on the UI, but I just want it to be available in terms of APIs, right? So let me try to execute it and let's see what happens. Okay, now it's okay, right. So now, first of all, it is reading certain files, certain project files, right? Then it would also read relevant skills required for it to execute this request. So the skills we have given here is for EF core migration scripts, right? So it would be, okay, just a second, where it went. Okay, so it has coding standard skill, which we have it here in the skills folder, coding, code review and coding standards. Then we have async await all these mechanisms to be taken care. Then we have app context, right? So it is reading through all those different skills, and then it will try to add a new model as instructed. Then it will try to add new DTOs. It will try to create, follow the repository pattern for creating a user repository interface, and then actual class it will be implementing. It will also update a context, right? App context for adding a user's table in the database. So all these implementations it will take care of, right? Now it is trying to read the files. Okay, now it knows the our entity structure, like how we are creating the models and how we are creating uh, different DTO files and all, right? And it also decided on certain encryption model. Okay, right? It reviewed certain files. Now it's trying to create. Okay, I'll allow this. It's trying to add a CS project file, certain things. Okay, so it will try to implement this feature for me as a custom agent, which will follow the instructions which I have given within the backend development agent file, correct? And at the end of this, you will see that it will try to hand off to these two agents, but it will be a manual handoff. It won't be a um, auto handoff, right? So let's quickly check this out. Okay, in the meantime, I'll show you another demo here. Just a second. Okay, this one. Okay. So I'll show you another demo where I will create, I have a plan already available, which is wish list plan, right? Slash wish list feature. And I have a agent, which I will use it here. Okay. Can you start the implementation? Yeah. Now, because this agent already has this whole feature information through plan mode, we'll check what it does, right? Okay, so it first proposed the architecture, right? It's creating a workspace for me, all right? Okay, so it can also try to figure out certain stuff, like create a workspace, okay? Select this parent folder, right? Let me check, go back and check what's happening in my other project. Right? It's still trying to build certain things, trying to run the migration scaling as of now, but it should be able to figure it out. Okay. So, okay, the API is currently running. So it's trying to stop the API. Okay.
By the time, Moiz, there is one question in
Yes.
the chat. What
Okay.
does keep/undo do to files? That's one question.
Okay. So basically, for example, if you have changed certain files through coding agent, right? So and if you want to revert those changes, right? I think it was available previously, but I'm not sure if it's now available. It's part of the undo mechanism directly here. Just a second. What have you mentioned? Let me just check. Keep/undo. Right. I don't think so. There is such prompt as of now available.
Yeah, I think he's talking about these two buttons. Maybe Rajesh, if you want
Yeah, okay,
to.
these two buttons. Yeah, I already explained, I think.
Yep,
So
yep,
this would be once the coding agent finishes its job, you can see here it changed 11 files, right? So if I want to
yep,
accept all these changes, we can just say keep. Or if you want
yep,
to, if we are not confident in the coding agent and we want it to be reverted back to its original state, we can just say undo. So it
yep,
would revert those changes and it will bring it back to its original state, right?
yep. Okay, I think
So
Rajesh, you
here,
got your answer.
yes.
Yep. Okay, over to you.
Yeah. So now, as we can see here, the coding agent finished its job through our custom backend agent, right? It created all these files, which is user registration, login, and all those stuff. And at the end, it is giving us three handoff buttons, right? So this one hands it off to the unit testing agent, right? So we have a testing, a custom agent, which is unit testing agent, correct? So if I press on this button, it would provide this request to unit testing agent. Then unit testing agent would further test the API. It will try to execute the API and see how does it respond, right? So this is how we can utilize custom agents, right? So I'll move back to the presentation. Okay. Now we saw how custom agents can be defined. And if you want to create a custom agent from the terminal, you can just go here, create a custom agent, and then you can describe what kind of custom agent you need here, right? And as you can see, I have a lot of different custom agents here, which you can create. And all these things are relevant or important to provide when defining an agent. And handoffs is something to define sub agents where this request could be handed over to, right? And you can also give instructions on what skills to apply, what output should be there, how the output format should be. You can also mention to create a document at the end of finishing its job, right? So it's pretty straightforward on how to define these custom agents. Now, so now we use the custom agent, and specifically we need to choose which agent to utilize for certain tasks, right? Now we will see what is an agentic flow at the like end-to-end for end-to-end development, right? So we can have an orchestrator agent, as we can see here. Now this agent's job would be to delegate tasks between different agents automatically without the need of us providing a handoff, right? So here I can just say that, implement me a feature which is expense tracker or something. And then this orchestrator agent would first give it to solution design agent, which would be creating a whole design of how this feature should be implemented. Then it would automatically hand it over to DB agent. So we don't need to worry about manual handoffs by like first reviewing the information from here and then giving it to DB agent. So that whole manual intervention goes, right? Okay, there's another question. Let me check how to decide which custom agent invoke dynamic. Okay, no, so we don't select it manually and we'll see it right now. How do we know which has to be executed? So let me go back to Visual Studio. This would answer your question. So, all right, so let's go here, right? And I have an agent called orchestrator agent, right? So let me close this two things and let me zoom in a bit. I'll close this also. Now there is an orchestrator agent which will do a full end-to-end feature development for us, right? And the tools which we have given here are these so that it can invoke whichever tools are required. And if you see this area where we can say there are agents, right? So this particular orchestrator agent can invoke sub agents which are architecture, backend, front end, unit testing, and all those agents can be invoked by orchestrator agent. Then I don't want any handoffs here because it will be all manual, right? So if I add manual handoffs, then I have to manually select those agents, but I'm giving it an auto orchestration instruction. So it will automatically hand it off to other agents, right? And to do that, we need to define orchestration pipeline, right? Coming back to your question, Sachin. So when we define the pipeline, the initial orchestrator agent would first give it to the architecture agent to see to create a design or review the design or make certain decisions based on how we have defined the architecture agent. Then the architecture agent would give it to the backend agent, right? So if there are any backend changes required, it would automatically figure out whether backend changes are required or not. If it is not required, then it would directly give it to um, sure. I'll just finish it up and then give you a demo. So once the backend is done, then it would go to front end and then it will finish these two tasks, right? Now, if the architecture agent itself is creating us request models or response structure and all, then these two agents would be running in parallel, right? So we'll see it in a moment, like how these agents would work um, when we do an actual implementation, right? So I've prepared a small video because it might take a lot of time to execute certain things. So let me first check the question on how to create a simple MD5. Okay, so okay, let me go give that demo first. Let's see here, right? Okay, let me close it up. Let me open this one, open the chat. So you want to see how a sample agent should be created, right? So I'll go back, I'll close it up. I'll select the default agent here. Let me zoom out a little bit and expand this. Okay. So I want to create an agent, right? So create agent command I can use. And I can just explain what kind of agent I need, right? So for my use case, I can have a, okay, okay, I can have a, can you create me a UI/UX agent whose main focus would be to um, design slash redesign the user interface based on the ease of use for the customers. Okay. Um, it should make sure that the color branding to be followed is sky blue and white. So we invoked slash create agent prompt file, and now the coding agent would create as a simple.md file, right? And you can also create the agent directly from here by clicking on um, this and configure custom agents, right? And it would allow you to prompt, create a custom agent file here in GitHub default workspace. You can give a name, sample agent, and this is how the .md file will look like, the empty one, where you have a sample name, description, and then you can add tools. Then rest of the things based on your requirement, you can define handoffs and all those stuff, right? So this is how a simple.md file will be created within your .github folder under agents. Plus, you can also use GitHub Copilot to create you those files where you mention your initial request, you provide the color theming and branding and all, and it will create a UI UX agent.md file for you, which you can see here is already been created. I'll say keep, and you can see it did not give any handoffs. It gave read, search, and edit, so it can make changes. It also gave brand identity by providing the color codes. So this is how you can simply create a custom agent by giving instructions to GitHub Copilot or by selecting the option from here in configure custom agents, right? Does that answer your question, Sachin? Sorry, Rajesh? Okay. So let's move on to our next part of the demo. I'll just keep this thing. Okay, so as we saw that we had an orchestrator agent. So let's see how this orchestrator agent works, right? So I'll just start this video so that we don't have to spend time. So let's see. So now, okay, let me start. Okay, okay, so I'm just trying to, okay, I think it's not coming properly.
Is there an audio voice on the video?
So as you can see, I selected a feature suggestion agent for suggesting me a new feature. Let's see, it will create certain, okay, it gave me a list of items which I can keep. I'll just skip this part. And as you can see, I selected this particular feature to be created and I gave it to plan mode so that the planning agent would then, create me a plan for implementing this particular feature. Okay. And now the planning agent would create me, so it would create me a plan for implementing this feature, right? And at the end, I will create okay, I'll now create a file for this particular plan and it will save it as a prompt file, right? And I can review this plan, what it has given me, and then I can save it as a prompt file. As you can see here, there's an option to save it as a prompt file, right? And I can give the name of this file and store it within my workspace, right? Now, next, what I would do is I would use this prompt file as a new chat. Okay, I use slash prompt file and then I selected the orchestrator agent from my list, right? Now, this orchestrator agent, we can select any other model which we want. And we have different models here based on the, of course, the plan which we are using. And once we select the plan and we start executing, okay, now the orchestrator agent would create a to-do list for me. So if you see here, it created me 8 tasks to be done, and it also created a pipeline for me, right? So you can see the pipeline here, architecture, backend, and front end, and then it would execute three agents in parallel for testing, and then there will be a security audit and documentation at the end. Now, I would try to skip this part because this would again go through. So, okay. So at the end, what happened? It executed all those items for me without any human intervention, right? And at each stage, it created me certain summary, which I will show you now. So let me just close this and I'll show you what it created for me at the end, right? So go back to that same chat which I had in the morning. Okay, this one. Okay, this one. So here, when I actually started initially, so what it did, it reviewed. Okay, okay, there is feature suggestion. Then just a moment. Okay, this is the plan. Just give me a moment. I'm trying to figure it out. Okay, next feature suggestion, then feature suggestion request created a plan, and then the actual spending forecast plan got executed here, right? So okay, so here let us review the like each step what the architecture or what the orchestrator did here, right? So initially it invoked the architecture agent which uses Claude model. And if you see the architecture agent analyze certain things, it created certain phases for it, and then it also read code review skills to make sure that code review elements are present or implemented in that way. And then at the end, it reviewed certain content files. And once it finished, it created certain architectural decisions it prepared here, right? So if you see here, at the end, it created the key decisions, confirmed that all these DTOs will be created and all these stuff will be done, right? So you can review the whole thing, what the architecture agent did, right? Now, if you move on to the next part, which is starting backend development, right? So similar thing, the backend development agent will get the input from the architecture agent, and then it would be working on top of that input, right? So it will create all these files. You can see the actual classes which has been created, and then at the end, it will run the .NET build to make sure that the API is working. And once the build is succeeded, it will create a summary for you. So here you can see the summary. It created all these files. Uh, these were the existing files which are changed, maybe. Okay, all these stuff it created. And then it is also showing a new endpoint which was created, and it made sure that the endpoint returns 200 once executed, right? Now, at the same time, once the backend completed its job, the front end would do the similar things. I would skip other agents and I'll go to the integration unit testing first. And at the end of the unit testing, you can see that there were 23 tests which were passed. And it also creates you a good result set here. I'll show you. Okay, it created me a summary here. And if we see the integration testing, it will show all those test cases which has been passed in terms of forecast, right? It had five new test cases added, which shows as passed, and the previous 17 tests also are passed, right? So at the end of each session, it creates me a proper report of what all things it did. And if even if you see the security audit agent, now security audit agent would also give you the findings of what all issues had been identified, right? So here's how you can, define your whole orchestration, and at the end, the documentation took place, and we can have all 8 documents available for us to, review. And if you see the documentation, you can find it in your repository. Let me check it out. Expand this. Okay, it would be somewhere here, but yeah. So that's how you can do the end-to-end orchestration of your particular development feature, right? And you can review each and every step, and it will also show you certain summary at the end where you can see what all tasks it finished and what all files it created. So it gave you a summary. If you want to review certain files, you can go ahead and review it. And I'll try to show what it created for me. So previously, as you saw, that it did not have any forecast here, right? And once we finished implementing this feature, let's try to run it. I just close this one. Allow this command. Let me take up a few questions which are in the chat. Okay. Skill versus agent. Then which VS Code extension are you using? Okay. LLM Council in GitHub Copilot. How different is UI panel council? Okay. So
There's also one that
okay,
how to
starting
decide
with skill versus agent, right? So
which custom
skills are
agent invoke
something which
dynamically.
are set of instructions which should be followed when you want to perform certain activity, right? Now, the coding agent is something which performs actions or change files. If you see in whole, both are instructions, but skills are invoked within the custom agents also, right? And the custom agent which we create is also responsible for doing certain tasks and taking certain actions. But when you talk about skills, skills will only be executing the predefined set of scripts. It would not on its own, try to create new scripts, or it will not try to edit new files. Correct. So that's the major difference between skills and agent. And agent are autonomous processes, which where a custom agent would try to do certain actions for you, or try to complete certain goals for you, which like adding a new feature, and then within that agent you can invoke those skills. So let's say one agent requires different set of skills which we have here. So for example, we have code review, documentation. These are domain specific skills, right? So a backend agent, which is a custom agent, would also require multiple set of skills from the skill list. So it will invoke all those skills which are relevant to that feature within the agent, and it will try to reuse those things directly within the skills, and will not try to re-engineer those things which are already present. I hope this clarifies your question. Now let's see the application. It started running here. Okay, let me open it up. Oh, okay. Mhm. Let me check what it did. Try to kill certain commands. Trying to, okay. Mhm. Let me check the terminal. What happened? Okay, this shows me run, but it's backend. I think it's API. I'll go to the expenses. It's not working. Okay. All right, so 5229, it's running here. Due to my IIS, maybe it's causing some issues. I'll just remove it from here. Let's stop this thing. Into .NET. Okay. Let me stop this terminal first. I'll open another terminal. Okay. Let it execute. Okay, so now this is working. Let me try to open up. Okay. So now as you can see here, the forecast feature got added where it will do the average, right? So it implemented that feature pretty much how we wanted. And if we change on to, let's say 10,000, maybe I spent eight, we also make changes to the forecasting, right? So it did end-to-end implementation for me from database to front end and the functionality, right? Now, let me go back to the questions. Can you explain me like what do you mean by create LLM council in GitHub Copilot? Can you elaborate on this question, please, Siddesh? I think if you can unmute him. So
I'll unmute. Which was the question that you read it for who?
okay, by the time we come back, okay, I'll go back to my presentation. So in conclusion, what we saw here is we saw how to optimize our development process in terms of creating skills. We saw how to create custom agents, and we also saw full orchestration end to end, how we can achieve it through GitHub Copilot. So you can give it a try. You can try to create a simple application first, and then try to use it in your production grade code base. Uh, I personally, in my organization, I have created this different set of agents on our production grade code base, right? So this is our application product, which is for our internal usage. And we have already set up different agents and different feature, different orchestration here. And we have been using it practically like 80-90% of our code base has been created by the coding agents through this mechanism. And we can also control this on our GitHub repository that also I will show you here. GitHub Copilot, right? And within my account or within my repository, okay, let me go back to my repository. So the one which I showed you is this one, and I can also create issues from here, which can be assigned to the custom agent which we created locally, right? So once we push this code base on the repository, you can utilize those custom agents from the GitHub repository itself. So you can see all these agents are in sync, and you can also make certain agents read only so that you have a set of agents which are at organization level, which has to be used by all the developers, and they would not be able to change it from their side, so that you can have that control over the organization level, like what kind of features or tools you need to enable for those custom agents, right? So you can control all that, right? Now, okay, going back to the presentation. So, all in all,
Moiz,
the
Moiz,
orchestrated agent will
you're
be able
already
to do
running.
end-to-end development for you. It can also figure out what all things can be executed in parallel, and you can try it out. Let me know if you have any more questions as we conclude this session, right?
Yeah, Moiz, thanks for the session. Thanks for the useful contribution
Okay,
towards
so
the.
this now, so five LLMs to synthesize and give you an answer, right? So, okay, I had created this for today's demo also. So if you go here, check my agents, I have a research lead agent, right? Now, what this research lead agent would do, this
Moiz,
research
can you
lead
hear me?
agent would have three
Can you
agents
hear me?
which would do research using multiple coding agents, LLMs, right? And once these parallel execution completes, it will then do a final comparison and create a final synthesized report for you, like which agent came up with what kind of research, right? So this I executed today morning. I'll open the expense forecast comparison. And if you can see here, when I initiated the research, there were three agents which executed in parallel. One was research with Claude, research with GPT, and research with Codex. Then the output from all these three reports were reviewed by the research lead, and then there was a final synthesis which was created, right? So, and if you see the report, it creates. Yeah,
Sorry
I
to
think
just
there is
cut you short in between, but I think we're running over time. Is it fine if you could take the next one and then we can take the next?
sure, sure. I'm okay with it. I think that specific. I think there's a lot of echo happening. Okay, so I'll just conclude my session here because we are running out of time. But I'll take up the rest of the questions if you can. If you want to reach out to me or over LinkedIn, you can connect with me through this QR code. You can scan it and connect with me, and you can reach out with your questions or if you need any assistance in setting this thing up. Thank you so much for the time, and thank you to the organizers. Back to you.
Sure. Can you hear me?
There's an
Can you hear me
echo
still?
happening on your side. Yeah. Yeah. Now it's
Is
fine.
it?
Yes.
No, it's fine.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
okay now. Yes.
Thanks, Moiz, for the wonderful session. I think once you have posted the connect, people can connect and have a discussion with you around if they have problems around it. Thanks for taking time out on a weekend and helping us with this great community work.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Now,